The day I met Ji-yeon, I thought I was the luckiest man alive. It was one of those late summer nights when the streets of Seoul were buzzing, the neon lights painting everything in a wash of electric blues and reds. I had just stumbled out of a bar, half drunk and laughing at one of my own shitty jokes, when she appeared, stepping out of the shadows like a dream made flesh. She was beautiful, no, perfect. Her long black hair cascaded over her shoulders, and her eyes were dark pools, glinting with a mysterious, almost dangerous allure. Her smile was the kind that promised secrets, the kind you'd happily destroy yourself to uncover. "Rough night?" she asked, her voice soft and musical, and I couldn't help but grin like an idiot. "Rough? Nah. But it just got a hell of a lot better," I replied, my confidence bolstered by the alcohol coursing through my veins. She laughed, and I swear it sounded like bells, light and lilting. We talked for what felt like hours, walking through the maze of alleyways lit by dim street lamps. Her laugh was intoxicating, her gaze captivating, and when she leaned in close, brushing her lips against my ear, I felt my entire body shiver. "Do you want to see something beautiful?" she whispered. I should have hesitated. I should have felt the warning prickle at the back of my neck, the one that tells you something isn't right. But I was too far gone, caught in her web, and I nodded. She took my hand, her grip surprisingly strong, and led me away from the lights and the crowds, deeper into the shadows. We ended up on the outskirts of the city, in a secluded park where the trees loomed like silent, ancient guardians. The moon hung low, casting pale light over the overgrown paths, and the cicadas sang a dissonant lullaby. The fog seemed to roll in from nowhere, wrapping around us, muting the sounds of the city until it felt like we were the only two people left in the world. Ji-yeon let go of my hand and stepped forward, her silhouette bathed in moonlight. Her smile grew wider, stretching in a way that made my stomach twist. "Do you believe in magic?" she asked, her voice carrying a strange echo. I laughed, though it sounded weak in the empty park. "Not really," I said. "But I'm open to surprises." She turned to face me, her eyes catching the moonlight, and for a split second, they didn't look human. They glinted gold, the way an animal's eyes reflect light in the dark, and I felt my skin crawl. "Then you'll love this," she murmured. Her body shimmered, almost like a heat mirage. The air around her thickened, twisting and bending, and before my disbelieving eyes, she began to change. Her hair seemed to writhe, growing longer, coiling like serpents. Her fingernails extended into razor-sharp claws, and her face distorted, her smile splitting wider, revealing teeth that were far too sharp, far too predatory. But the most horrifying thing of all were the 9 bushy, white fox tails that unfurled behind her, whipping through the air like living things. My heart froze, the blood in my veins turning to ice. "Oh, fuck," I whispered, stumbling back. "What the fuck?" Ji-yeon, or whatever she really was, laughed, but it was no longer musical or soft. It was a guttural, echoing sound, the kind that made you feel like prey. "Humans are so predictable," she cooed, her voice now a blend of the seductive and the inhuman. "So easy to lure. You're all so blinded by beauty, so willing to ignore the shadows if it means a chance at pleasure." I turned to run, but she was faster. Her claws hooked into my jacket, yanking me backward, and I fell hard onto the damp ground. Pain exploded in my shoulder, and I scrambled, kicking at her, but she loomed over me, her tails flicking impatiently. "Where are you going?" she whispered, her breath hot against my cheek. "You wanted to see something beautiful, didn't you?" I managed to throw her off and stumbled to my feet, my vision blurring with fear. I ran, branches whipping at my face, roots trying to trip me, but her laughter followed me, echoing through the park. The sound twisted and turned, always seeming to come from everywhere at once. I crashed into a clearing, my chest heaving, and spun around, clutching a fallen tree branch like a pathetic weapon. The fog had swallowed everything, and the shadows danced, taunting me. "Do you know the legends?" she called out, her voice teasing. The tales of the Kumiho, the fox spirit who feasts on the hearts of foolish men? I gripped the branch tighter, my hands slick with sweat. Stay the fuck away from me! I shouted, but my voice cracked. The fog parted, and there she was, her human face slipping in and out of the monstrous, her tails weaving hypnotically behind her. Her eyes glittered with hunger, and she tilted her head, as if savoring the moment. I haven't had a heart in such a long time, she mused. It's the sweetest part, you know. Full of life, full of fear. She lunged, and I swung the branch as hard as I could. It connected with her shoulder, and she let out a snarl, but it didn't slow her down. Her claws sliced across my chest, and I screamed, the pain blinding, white-hot. Blood soaked my shirt, dripping onto the ground, and I fell to my knees, gasping. Ji-yeon leaned in, her tongue flicking out to lick the blood from her claws. Delicious, she whispered, and I knew I was going to die. But then, a voice shattered the night. Be gone, spirit. It rang out, strong and commanding, and the fog seemed to shudder. A man stepped into the clearing, an old priest dressed in traditional robes, clutching a wooden talisman inscribed with ancient symbols. The Kumiho's eyes narrowed, and she hissed, her body rippling with fury. You dare interfere, she spat. The priest held the talisman high, and it glowed with a golden light. You have no power here, fox spirit. Leave this place, or face the wrath of the gods. Ji-yeon snarled, her tails lashing wildly, but she began to back away. Her eyes locked onto mine, and she smiled, a promise of future violence. Another time, then, she whispered, and in a blur of motion, she vanished into the fog, leaving only the echo of her laughter behind. I collapsed, the world spinning, and the priest knelt beside me, murmuring a prayer. The last thing I saw before everything went black was his face, lined with worry and resolve. I woke up in a small, dimly lit room that smelled of incense and herbs. Bandages wrapped my chest, and the pain had dulled to a deep, throbbing ache. The old priest sat beside me, his hands folded in his lap. You're lucky to be alive, he said. The Kumiho doesn't often let her prey escape. Why didn't she kill me? I croaked, my throat dry. He sighed, his eyes heavy with the weight of old knowledge. Because she likes to play with her food. And she knows you'll never forget her. I shivered, the memory of her laughter still echoing in my mind. I had come to Seoul looking for adventure, but now I knew I would never be free of the shadows, of the creature that wore a beautiful face and devoured the hearts of men. Some nightmares never truly end. Some beautiful things are more dangerous than the darkest monsters. And some legends are terrifyingly real.